every day, right? These massive rivers of concrete that slice right through our cities. We mostly think of them as just a way to get from point A to point B. But what if I told you they're actually hiding one of the biggest economic opportunities your city has? Well, that is the surprising case we're digging into today. Okay, let's just start with a quick thought experiment. I want you to picture the highway that cuts through the downtown closest to you. Now, imagine all that asphalt was just gone. And in its place, acres and acres of prime, developable real estate. What do you think that would be worth? It turns out just asking that one question is completely changing the entire debate around urban highways. So for years, the fight to get rid of these highways has been all about these really powerful arguments. Things like social justice, environmental damage, and healing communities that were torn apart. And look, those issues are incredibly, incredibly important. But lately, that whole approach has kind of hit a brick wall. A perfect example of this is the federal Reconnecting Communities program. It was a huge deal when it launched in 2021. $4 billion set aside to help heal the damage these highways caused, particularly in Black neighborhoods. But the money never really got where it was supposed to go, the program pretty much stalled, and it forced advocates to go right back to the drawing board to come up with a whole new playbook. And that brings us right to that new strategy. This time, it's not about pulling on your heartstrings. Nope, it's about pulling out a calculator. This is a huge strategic pivot, moving away from a justice-focused argument to one that is purely and really powerfully economic. Now, what's really interesting here is the logic behind this shift. Urban planner Patrick Kennedy, who wrote a major new report on all this, he puts it pretty bluntly. He says you just can't make these kinds of massive changes unless you make what he calls the conventional conservative case. In other words, it has to be all about the numbers. So let's break that down, right? The old social argument, it focuses on things like pollution and righting historical wrongs. The new economic argument, it is laser-focused on untapped real estate value and the billions in tax revenue that cities are losing out on. And Kennedy was actually pushed to this new approach by what he calls failure, after his own decade-long fight to get rid of a highway in Dallas just stalled out. So what did Kennedy actually find when he started crunching the numbers for cities all across the US? Well, this is where the true scale of this whole thing becomes, wow, just incredibly clear. First off, just think about the sheer physical space they take up. If you draw a 3-mile circle around the downtowns in 142 American cities, the highways inside that circle are eating up a staggering 66,000 acres of land. That is a truly enormous amount of space, right in the heart of our most valuable urban areas. And what's all that land worth? Well, the report estimates it represents over $500 billion in untapped development potential. That is just an astronomical amount of money sitting there, paved over and generating absolutely nothing. So what does that mean for city budgets? It means that every single year, that unproductive land adds up to about $5.2 billion in lost property tax revenue. That's money that could be going to schools, public safety, all those essential services. And when you start looking at specific cities, the numbers are just mind-boggling. In San Francisco, that highway land is sitting on almost $69 billion of potential value. For Boston, it's over $60 billion. Chicago, New York, DC, they're all sitting on tens of billions of dollars worth of pure opportunity. And it's really important to know this isn't some fantasy calculation. The model they used is actually pretty conservative. It assumes only about 55% of the land gets redeveloped into taxable properties. The other 45%, that's set aside for public goods like new streets, new parks, and new schools. But this whole argument goes way beyond just real estate. Getting rid of these highways creates all these other powerful ripple effects, both economic and social, that really just reinforce the whole dollars and cents case. Now, I know the biggest objection you always hear is, but what about the traffic? This brings us to a really key concept called induced demand. The idea is actually pretty simple. If you build more roads or wider roads, you just get more traffic. The new lanes fill up almost immediately, and you end up solving nothing in the long run. And Kennedy's report confirms this with hard data. The strongest correlation he found was a direct line. The more highway lane miles a city has, the more total miles its residents drive. It's pretty much a one-to-one relationship. So what happens when you do the opposite and you actually remove a highway? Well, history gives us a really clear answer. After highways were torn down in places like Manhattan and San Francisco, the traffic apocalypse everyone predicted, it just never happened. In fact, overall traffic volumes often went down as people adjusted, switching to transit or just making more local trips on foot. All of this really forces us to look back and reevaluate the massive cost and the opportunity cost of the decisions that were made decades and decades ago when these highways were first put in. Just think about the sheer inefficiency of it all. The urban sections of the interstate highway system, they were only about 10% of the total miles built nationwide, but they consumed a staggering half of the entire construction budget, 50%. So how much did that cost us? In today's dollars, building just those urban highways cost America $375 billion. Just let that number sink in for a minute. $375 billion. So here it is. Here's the trade-off we made as a country. With that same amount of money, the report calculates that America could have built the equivalent of 36 Paris metro systems. 36! I mean, can you imagine how different our cities would look and work today? So, where does all this leave us? Well, Kennedy believes this economic analysis is a tool that can and absolutely should be applied everywhere. He says even where there's not campaigns for highway removals, there are probably highways that need to have campaigns. The opportunity is just hiding in plain sight in cities all across the country. Ultimately, this economic data just reframes the entire debate. Highways were once seen as the absolute symbol of the future. But when you look at the staggering opportunity cost they represent today, we have to ask a completely new question. What should be the future of this land now?